What would it really mean to live forever? Can we even conceive of such a thing, or of its consequences? Of the impact an immortal existence would have on our mortal design? Over the last century, life expectancy has doubled. We've literally pushed death back and said no. Or at least, give me a few more years. And in our contemporary world, scientists and captains of industry are grasping opportunities that a few decades ago were squarely in the realm of science fiction, and seeing how far they can run with them. And, speaking personally, I can't think of much I wouldn't give to have a few more years with some of my loved ones who have passed on. But, if we were to take this dynamic a bit further, if you could live for 1,000 years, say, would you still value your nth newborn child in the same way that you valued your first? If life doesn't give way to new life, if overcrowding becomes a real threat, if your body goes on forever, what then becomes of your soul? These are some of the questions explored in the French TV series Ad Vitam by Thomas Cayley, a sci-fi set in a future world in which death by natural causes has been all but eradicated. So today, let's go on a journey together and explore these existential questions through the lens of this French cyberpunk future. A brave new world and its murky underbelly. Several hundred years into the future, the world celebrates the 169th birthday of the oldest woman in the world. Thanks to regenerative technologies, people can now extend their lifespans and health spans seemingly indefinitely, and there is an air of optimism and gaiety as people party long into the night, echoing the sentiment of their doyenne, "May you have 1,000 lives to live." However, this optimism is undercut by several dark events. Firstly, there are constant reminders of political problems, such as an upcoming referendum that seeks to ban new births, a means by which to control the ever-growing population numbers. And, darker still, several bodies of young adults show up on the beaches the morning after the celebration, bringing with them murmurs of a death cult named Saul, a rallying cry against the regenerative society that had been dormant for over a decade. And this is the backdrop upon which our drama plays out. It's the best of times, it's the worst of times. While part of society pushes towards the infinite, the younger generation stands still and asks, well, what about us? And feel forced to turn towards self-sacrifice to make their point. And into this dualism step our two protagonists to ask further questions that continue to pull back the existential curtain on this strange and dark society. Darius. Darius is a classic hard-boiled detective with a cyberpunk spin. At over 100 years old, one might assume that he is taken by this brave new world of regeneration. But this in fact could not be further from the truth. He is self-destructive, he has affairs, he shows up drunk for regenerations, and he almost seems to carry a bitterness towards this infinite life. A life that has taken so much from him. His career, his loved ones, and more. And yet a life that won't let him go. In this way, Darius is like the ghost in the machine. He carries death with him and is unable to escape it, no matter what he does. But ironically, it's this very dourness and skepticism that will ultimately lead him to discoveries and behaviours that demonstrate an utmost love of life. But a love of life that can only exist hand in hand with an acceptance of death. It takes someone who knows the waves of pain, of grief, of death, to be able to grasp life fully and appreciate it for what it is. Krista Novak. As a perfect foil to Darius, Krista is a 24-year-old former member of the death cult Saul. She is tattooed with its mark, 2 dots, one representing life, the other death. But unlike many members of Saul, she continues to walk this earth. And although she is against regeneration, she's also not a supporter of self-sacrifice and premature death. She believes that eternal life is not the answer, but neither is to take one's own. She represents the idealism of youth, but a youth that appreciates its own importance. Together, Darius and Krista investigate the deaths of these young members of Saul and the 277 youth who have disappeared in the previous 6 months, and pull back the rug on an even darker secret that the ancient elites of society are hiding. The fates of those who live forever. In a world where immortality is within our grasp, we begin to fetishize death. In order to feel alive, we need to feel some pain, some urgency, some perversion even. This brings to mind a thought experiment that Alan Watts came up with. He said that if we were to imagine our perfect world, it would probably contain no friction, no problems, no difficulties at all. But then, given time, we would get bored with this world. We would start to introduce troubles, death, grief, real obstacles, in order to make things more interesting. And it would reach a point at which this perfect world we create would actually not look all that different from the real world that we currently live in. And in this sense, we learn to appreciate this life that we have. But this is something that is rejected by many of the elites in the Vitam society. The elites in this society like the life that death brings, but they don't want to face the consequences of it. And they commit heinous crimes as a result. And ironically, in living forever, they become more dead, ethically and spiritually, the longer they go on living. As one member of Saul says to a regenerate, "I speak to the living, not to the dead. You are a ghost." Ultimately, Thomas Cayley's series is a visually beautiful and thought-provoking exploration of these ideas about immortality and its discontents. It leaves us with a strong sense of why our lives are valuable, and presses hard on the question, if we could extend our biological life form indefinitely, we wouldn't be mortal, we wouldn't be robots, but would we still be human? Thanks for watching everyone, I hope you liked the video, I hope it gave you pause for thought. If you haven't already, please subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.